Woof woof and namaste. This is Hill Dog and welcome to Kanha Cast, a series of conversations with visitors and residents of Kanha Shanti Vanam, the International Centre for Heartfulness near Hyderabad in Telangana, India. Today I'm going to be speaking to Dr. Radheshyam Miryala. Dr. Radheshyam Miryala is an emergency room medical director and he's also a heartfulness meditation trainer. He was at Kanha Shanti Vanam for the recent gathering of Bhandara that was held in February 2023. For those of you who don't know, heartfulness is a meditation technique that is offered for free by volunteer trainers around the world. From 1983 to 2014, Chariji was the heartfulness guide, and from 2014 to the present day, Daji has been the heartfulness guide. A heartfulness meditation trainer is also called a preceptor, and a heartfulness meditation session is called a sitting. So, Brother Radheshyam, thank you for taking time out in the middle of a Bhandara and sitting down with us in the Kanha Studio.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
And it's amazing that I know very little about you, brother, but my introduction to you was through a video where you spoke about wellness and you spoke about having the right habits and cultivating a routine. And you ended the video with taking a drag out of a big fat cigar. I love that video. I thought it was so funny.
Yeah, it was just a little gag I did for my friends. So
it was really nice. But so you strike me as somebody who enjoys having a lot of fun.
I have a lot of fun. Yes, that's true. I get accused of that a lot.
But professionally, brother, you're an MD.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I'm an emergency medicine doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So back home, which is in Houston, Texas, I'm the medical director of a emergency room. So this is where I do most of my work. I work about 8 to 10 24-hour shifts there, and then I help manage the ER.
Wow.
On top of that, I'm married to my wife, who's also a pediatrician and a preceptor. We have 2 kids, and we have lots of other shenanigans that we get into.
So, but you're in the ER. So the ER is a high-stress place. I mean, I guess you do need a sense of humor to keep your sanity in a way.
Yes, yeah. ER people who work in the ER have a fantastic sense of humor. Yeah, it can be a little dark.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
How accurate are the TV series that show ER? I mean, there was the TV series with that name.
Yes, there's been a study that shows that that in TV, a lot of people get their lives saved dramatically, which doesn't always happen in real life like that, So they tend to have a lot more saves.
Wow.
But it's more dramatic. And
so in the real world, the ER loses a lot of people. You lose a lot of people.
We don't lose a lot, but like if someone, if they're doing chest compressions
Mm-hmm.
and what I mean to say is that if someone's has already arrested and you're trying to bring them back, the incidence of what happens in television is a lot better than what happens in real life.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how did you start in medicine? Was it something that you always wanted to do, or
Yes, it was something that I always wanted to do. Yeah.
is it in the family? Have people been
No.
doctors?
I'm the first one. I'm the first one to get into medicine.
And it was something that you were aligned to right from your school days. You knew you wanted to be in medicine.
Yeah. So in America, like here, people go into medicine straight out of high school.
Sure.
In America, people get a college degree,
Mm-hmm.
and then medicine is a postgraduate, education. So I actually did a degree in chemical engineering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So in my 3rd year, I got a job at a chemical plant. And I worked at the chemical plant. It was a summer intern job. And basically it's just a big refinery. And at the end of it, I was like, there's no way I could work for the man, making plastic and pollution. So But I always was going to go into medicine. I was thinking I'll work as an engineer for a few years. We had some financial issues, so I thought, I'd get the family out of, poverty and work for a few years and then go into medicine. But our by the time of that job, our situation had changed a little bit, so I was able to like steer direction sooner, and then I just started to like change my direction to go into medicine. But I had gotten so much of my degree, so I just finished that degree and went into medicine.
Sure. And once you were in medicine, were you always sure you were going to be in the emergency medicine, or were there other fields you were exploring?
There was a lot of things. So emergency medicine, it's for people that enjoy, a full breadth of medicine, lots of aspects to it. There's lots of, like somebody may have a heart attack, somebody may have a stroke, and then somebody may have fallen and dislocated their shoulder. So, it's not just thinking through things. There's also like the physical labor of like if somebody's shoulder is out, then you have to sit there and, yank on it and pull it back in. So I just liked all that variety of stuff.
If I mess up at my work, I miss a video deadline, somebody doesn't have a video, that's fine. But
Sure.
if you mess up, actually, you're dealing with people's lives.
Right.
So did you find the stress easy to handle right from the beginning?
So when I was younger, I worked at a very, very busy place. So it was like a level 1 trauma center. So straight out of residency, that's what I did. I was a professor there. It was like high volume, high intensity type of work. But when I was young, I mean, I craved that. It was great because there was just a lot of like learning there, and it was a great place to interact because it was a teaching hospital. I was a professor. There were residents, there were students, so it's always people to interact with, to teach and learn. So it was a really fun environment at that age. But after a while, it was getting to be too much. Once we had kids and stuff, it was tough to work in such a busy, demanding location. So now I work in a less fast-paced, more gentlemanly paced setting. So it's a little easier, a little less stressful.
Nice. A lot of stuff we see on the net and a lot of stuff, the Netflix series dealing with doctors and all. There's also a lot of hospital politics, doctor politics,
Right.
Is that accurate in any way, or is
I think that's in any situation. If you have two people together, there's going to be politics, and then if you have hundreds of people or thousands of people, you're going to magnify those politics exponentially.
Yeah, but I've seen a lot of series also that the politics is there, but the moment that you're in the operation theater, it's like a team.
Yeah, that's always true. Yeah, there, like the patient is always the priority, and then everybody knows their role. So, one thing that we do really well, like in the emergency room, there's a lot of protocols. Like, okay, when this happens, and you're in charge of this, you're in charge of this, I'm in charge of this. So everybody knows their roles, and everybody, just executes.
Wow. And you mentioned your wife is a pediatrician as well.
Yes.
So two doctors in the family, long work hours. How do you guys manage the cliched work-life balance question?
Yeah, it's I've lucked into a pretty good situation. I don't just work as an ER doctor. I manage the ER. And there's other responsibilities, and a lot of it is we've just set up great processes. So a lot of it kind of like everybody knows what to do. We have a great team. The team does a lot of the work, and we just have good processes in place. And the work is fun. Like I never like the shift work is a lot of fun. Like if there's an opportunity for me to suture someone's laceration or reduce a shoulder, like those are good days that I enjoy that, I enjoy that part of the work. And yeah, so like it is a lot to have a full-time job. My wife has a full-time job, and our two kids are very active. They do piano, tennis, viola, guitar, art, and there's just a lot of activities that we have to like shuttle them around for and be engaged with them in. We just somehow it just magically happens, you know. But I never feel overwhelmed. It just kind of it's just a natural part of it and natural part of life. Yeah.
So, for people who are contemplating a career in medicine, the young kids want to start out in medicine, what would your one major advice be to them? What is the one thing they shouldn't lose sight of?
I mean, they should do it because it's something that they love. You know, like their personality draws them to it. If they're driven by money, if they're if it's money or power or status, and that's not really the right motivation. Like if then you'll burn out and you won't be satisfied with the job because it can be brutal. It can be brutal. Like I'm giving you a rose-colored lens version of it. It can be a brutal workplace, you know. So if you don't have the right attitude, if you don't have, right purpose, you know, if it's not something that is giving your life purpose, then it'll be a tough thing to get into.
Like you mentioned, you enjoy suturing
Right.
someone's or
Yeah.
putting their shoulder back in,
Right.
and stuff like that. But if that starts looking like a chore to you, that would be difficult, right?
Yes. Right.
So I wanted to ask you also, brother, how did you get into heartfulness? Where does your heartfulness story start?
I was wondering when you were going to get to that. So, okay. I mean, when I was young, like in my teenage years, it was a curiosity. Like spirituality was a curiosity of mine. Like, so I read the Ramayana, the Mahabharata. I read a lot of Buddhist texts. I read a lot of
So you
Christian
grew
texts.
up in Houston?
So I went to America when I was 7.
Wow.
Yeah. So
And before that?
I'm more American than I am Indian. I mean, I'm sure that's
okay.
pretty obvious.
Yes. But where were you in India before?
Here,
Hyderabad.
well, close to here, Varangal. It's a few hours
Yes,
away.
yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I grew up here, and then when I was 7, I left. I grew so, and then it wasn't really a tough transition because I was young and it was easy to get into the language, and it was really a great place to grow up, and there were a lot of Indian people, so it was a place where I got the best of both worlds.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you were saying you were reading the Ramayana.
So then how I got into this gig. So it was a curiosity of mine. I read lots of texts and stuff, and then during college, and this is before the internet, before anything, there were libraries that you had to go to find books. So when I was a chemical engineering student, we had a 6-story library, and you had to walk aisle after aisle to find certain books. So I was walking through the aisles looking for something specific. And you may not believe the story, but the story is true. There was a book that was slightly ajar that caught my attention. It was slightly out of place. So I picked it up. It was a book of poems by Kabir. Okay. So I picked up the book. I started reading one poem. Then I read another poem. Then I read another poem. I stood there without moving. Without taking the book back to my desk, I stood there and read the whole poem, and I was really, really energized by it. So there's a lot of people read the poetry and find some beauty in it, and there's definitely that. What struck me was there's something that he's trying to tell us that he can't really put into words. He had some experience, he had some experience that probably very few people in this world have had, and he's trying his darndest to put it into words, and it's just coming out as like a garden of flowers in your heart. But that's not what that's not what he experienced. But that's the best that he could do. So then that really struck me as okay, this is something that I'm going to try to look into. Now I mentioned our financial problems growing up.
I want what he's having.
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned our financial issues growing up, and so and you couldn't Google something back then. So I'm trying to get set this up. I pulled out a phone book. I looked up under yoga or meditation, and I got like certain things, and I wrote down some names and numbers. So first group I call is transcendental meditation. They're like, oh yeah, we'd love to have you. It's $3,000. So I hung up the phone. Okay. Then there was one yoga studio in Houston back then.
Wow.
So I called them up, and they were like, oh yeah, come, we'd love to have you. It's like $100 a month. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. So like none of that was going to be possible. I went down a few other calls, and like nothing was going to work out. There was one that was kind of like, it was like the 4-H club. It was like the happy, holy, healthy something. It just sounded like a weird cultish thing. I was like, never mind. Sorry, I called. Wrong number.
Maybe we can Google it now.
Yeah.
What is the 4-H club?
So then, then I kind of forgot about it. And somehow someone told me about this thing, that, hey, there's this meditation, and they offer it for free. And I was like, oh, it's free. Okay, I'll try it. So back then there was one preceptor in Houston. His name is Kalpesh. So he gave me my introductory sittings. So I went there. He was a single guy. I went to his apartment. I took my first sitting. I really didn't feel anything. Okay. I took my second sitting. I was like, I didn't feel anything. Okay. Then I took my third sitting, and then at the end, there's definitely something that I couldn't put into words really, but I felt something, like some vibration, some current coming into me, and I was like, oh, that's different. That's not in any of the other things, So but I was still fairly young when I started, and I grew up in America, which I mentioned. So I was not that sincere when I first started. Like,
Sure.
I would.
How old were you?
Like I was like 18, 19 when I started.
Okay.
When I took my first sittings. But like I would party on Friday night, Saturday night, and then maybe go to satsang on Sunday, and that to me was like balanced living or something.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. I was kind of in and out of it. Sometimes I would be a little sincere and try to read some literature, and sometimes I'd fall off. But I always kept it there. Like I was always tethered to it, whether it was a long leash or a short leash. I was tethered to it. So it was I probably tempered some aspects of my life a little bit.
That sounds very interesting. That's very intriguing. You're baiting me with that tempering some aspects. You're just like, it's okay, brother. We can always edit stuff out.
Yeah. So if you want me to continue, so how I got like serious. So, I had finished, my residency. I got a job. I got married. I paid off my debts. I was in a decent position, so I had a salary with the university. My wife was a doctor. And so there came at a point in my life where I was like, okay, look, I've hit these check marks, I've checked off these boxes. Now, like, which direction am I going to focus the energy, of my life? So I looked through things like, okay, if I want to be like a published physician and move up and become like, so I would, okay, this is what I would do. These are things I would have to do. And I knew the end goal of like, I knew what would be at the end of that. Okay, if I focused on making money, like this is how it'd be. Like these are things I would have to do. And you knew what would be at the end of that. Okay. So, I was like, okay, what if I finally gave this heartfulness thing like its due respect? Like, what if I was sincere? Like, what is at the end of that? And I didn't know what the answer was, So then I was like, that's what I'm going to do for now. So then I started being a little more sincere, and then I got a calling to go to India. Okay. Now, the mission, has a guru, has a master. I told my wife, I was like, look, I'm going to go to India. I'm going to check out this meditation thing. I'm going to go hang out at the ashram for a week. But I promise you, I'm not going to get into this master stuff. I'm not going to do this guru business. I'm just going to go hang out.
So you're wary of
Right.
any
And
guru
it was like I just thought it was weird. I didn't grow up in India. Like in India, it's okay. Like everyone
sure.
has a guru, but there it's not. It's not.
Some people have
commonly
many
accepted.
gurus.
Right.
Yeah.
So I came, and then they asked if I wanted to be a preceptor. I thought they got the wrong idea, the wrong guy. I was like, I haven't read any of their books. I had to temper some of my other habits. I was like, I don't think they're thinking about me. But then, it was like, no, like Charji wants to, make you a preceptor. So, so I start taking sittings, and then the final sitting happens with Charji, and it's just this incredible experience that, again, I couldn't put into words and whatnot, and then so I go home and I'm like, hey, I'm a preceptor now, and of course it changes. Like you're like, my wife didn't recognize who I was, and you're like, so like, hey, I didn't sign up for this, I married a guy who liked to party and stuff, and here you are talking about your guru and God, and
Wow.
so yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the change happened just that one trip, and
I could feel the momentum building up in the background. If I could put it in those words, I could feel it. But and even my wife knew something was going to happen. In the sense, like she told me she had a dream that like I died in an airplane crash or something. But metaphorically, like the guy she married kind of was not coming back. It was some other dude was going to show up.
So how did she make her peace with this other dude who had shown up?
It was a tough few years, But the punchline is one day she became a preceptor, and I was sitting in the front row when Daji gave her little certificate. I like could not stop. Like I'm tears of like laughter were coming out. It was like.
So how did she come around? Was she practicing already? Was she?
I mean, we were just kind of casually in. Doing
It was something
you
you
did. It was
did.
just casually.
Yeah.
We weren't like committed. And so, she would come along with me. She's like, yeah, there's some, it does feel nice, but it wasn't something that we were going to like go full steam ahead with, And so then when I went, like, then it was definitely some little turmoil at the house for a bit until we both reached an understanding. And I mean, she took some time, and like initially maybe I didn't, I tried to talk to her about it, but then after some time when I just like stepped back and it just happened. You'll have to interview her and ask her story.
I would love to. I would love to. But what about people at work and your friends? How did they suddenly treat the new Radheshyam?
Yeah, so it was I was like, it was my mid-30s, so it was probably very difficult for them. They couldn't understand, especially coming from, the way we grew up in America. Yeah.
And what is the one thing you think changed most, over your engagement with Heartfulness?
This changes. I can't say that there's one thing, but there's a big ebb and flow in this journey.
Sure.
There's there are times when like you're full, like right now in this bandara, like I'm bursting with joy. It's a great question you ask, because I was on the phone with Ragni and the kids this morning, and we're just chatting and joking, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we don't miss you at all. We figured out how to fix the TV. We figured out how to get rid of the cockroaches. All the tasks that I'm supposed to do at home." So they're just kind of teasing me, and I was like, "Oh, I'm I'm filled with so much joy, I'm bursting, and they're like, oh, we'll snub it out of you as soon as you come.
Does it sometimes get, in your interaction with other people who are also on the meditative path, do
Yeah.
you sometimes feel there's a risk that we take ourselves too seriously?
Wow, that's a good question. So like, what is the alternative,
Hmm.
right? The alternative is to just live like like you're asleep at the wheel of life. Is is what I feel like. Like there's, most of us go through life like without a purpose, without intent, without knowing what the bigger picture is, or the deeper picture, right? Um, so I think you have to realize that there is so much more vastness to this life, and so many awesome experiences in spirituality, you know. So yeah, uh, it's it. I I think I think there's a manner in which we can take ourselves too seriously. Like I try to balance that by like maybe like you know like off playing the seriousness of it, like I feel like in some lives where I'm just kind of pretending, like, if I'm out at a you know dinner with colleagues or something, I have to put on a persona, and then maybe but then maybe this is a weird persona that I do, and then that's the real persona, but yeah, I mean, I think people have to, like, wear different masks and stuff. um I know there are people that are like so devoted, so disciplined. For me, I'm good where I'm at. I think with time things will change. I mean, I realize that I have to balance, raising my kids, being a husband, having a job, and all these other things with this. I try to do it as best as I can.
Well,
Yeah.
and like you mentioned, the first time you came here, and you were not going to get into any of that guru business.
Right.
So, how is that relationship changed? I mean, what is your relationship with the Heartfulness Guide, for instance? What was it like with Chariji and Daji? How did it change?
It's very internalized. It's very internalized. Um, uh, it is what, um like, if I feel, do I feel like Daji's look watching over my shoulder, making sure I'm doing the right thing or something. It's not like that. It's like it's the way. Let me put it this way: like, um, if you just want to play tennis, casually on the weekends, you don't need a coach, right? But if you want to win Wimbledon, you need a coach, right? So if you want to go through life casually, you don't need a coach. But if you want to get to all the pearls, all the experiences, all the depth that life has to offer, then you need a guru.
Wow, that's beautifully put. That's beautifully put. Now, coming to your being in America, and
Yeah.
your being a person of Indian origin in America,
Right.
did you ever feel a sense of alienation? You've grown up there. You since you were 7 years old.
Yeah.
Was there ever a sense of alienation, ever?
Where we grew up in Texas, in Houston, it was a very multicultural city.
Mm-hmm.
So in my high school, there's Indians, Pakistanis, Chinese, Taiwanese, Filipinos, Hispanics, South Americans, and American people from America. So it was just a broad, big melting pot, a big,
Wow.
soup. So, like, in the area that I grew up, like we all were going through the same thing. So it wasn't like I know people talk about race. I never really felt it. Just based on like where I grew up, And I'll have to say, like, America is a place where, like, if you applied yourself, you could really make whatever you want of yourself.
Oh, that's the American dream everyone speaks about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, this is very much a reality.
Yeah, yeah.
What do you think of this place? How often have you been to Kanha Shanti Vanam?
So, um, probably, I think this is my fifth
Okay.
or sixth time.
Okay.
Okay. So the first time I came with my daughter, my older daughter, and we had a great time. We would just, it was a really, I brought her because I was like, oh, it'll be a great bonding trip. Just, me and my daughter.
How old was she that time?
She was 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So we had a great time. Then she went back and she wanted to come back. She's the one that said, let's go back. Then the next time I brought both kids. They had a blast. They didn't meditate or anything. They were young, but they had a fantastic time. Then 2020, my daughter's asked to come back, but we couldn't because of the pandemic. 2021, we couldn't come back. Then 2022, she was like, "Hey, look, it's been a while. They want to go back. They know that there's something happening here, but they're like." They just, oh, it's a special place or it's a fun place, but they were asking to come back. So they feel whatever juju, whatever voodoo, whatever, magic is happening. They feel something is happening here. So they wanted to come back. So then we made it a family trip. My wife was able to join us. And so the four of us came, we had a great time. And then we left. And then 3 weeks later, I was like, I'm going to go back because of this gathering. So I came back. But it's just, there's, basically all the chitter chatter that happens in your brain kind of gets muted big time, so I just feel like it's just a beautiful, sublime existence here.
You mentioned the pandemic and, you being a doctor and your wife being a doctor as well.
Yeah.
That time must have been difficult.
Those 2 years were probably the most difficult of my career.
Wow.
So I'll tell, there were several months where there were no beds in the state of Texas, no hospital beds. So we work in a small facility, and if somebody needed higher level of care, we would have to transfer them. Like if somebody needed an ICU, right? But there were no ICU beds for a long time, for weeks at a time.
Wow.
And it was very, very stressful. There were cases where people had to get shipped from a place in Texas all the way to Philadelphia, many states away, or Arkansas.
Wow.
It was a stressful time. It was a lot to go through.
Yeah. How did you get through it as a family? Just being.
It was tough. We stayed together. We worked together through it. Our kids went to school. So they. I know in other countries, they close the schools for years at a time. Where we were at, their schools were closed for 3 months. And then there was a summer break, and then kids could rejoin in August. So our kids, we decided to put them back in school.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you see a person breathe his last, which is something you must have seen, I mean, through the pandemic and your job in the ER.
Yeah.
Is there something you do internally? Is there some way that you handle that situation?
It's there was when it's always tough. It's always tough.
Even after all these years.
Even after all these years, I mean, you're still a human being, and you still have emotions, and you still have to process them. I'll tell you, I remember, there was a drowning. So I used to work near the ocean. And every year we'd have a few drownings, and there was a kid who drowned in the ocean. He got swept away in a riptide, got pulled into the current, and so the boy is essentially is dead by the time they come into the ER. But it's a kid, right? So you still have to work it. You still have to do your best. You still have to do whatever, and so we did, and so in cases like that, in pediatric cases where you're really like everyone like just throws everything into the situation, and I think we worked the kid for like a couple of hours, and it's very stressful. And I would go home and I would eat like two large bowls of cinnamon toast crunch because that was like it was my way to soothe myself to, you know. And then the next day I would talk to the nurses and they'd be like, "Oh man, we went home, got drunk, we couldn't like, It was just you had to figure out ways to cope. Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of things. So cases like that, we would go through something like that routinely,
Wow.
and it was tough. But I think everyone understands that we try our best, and if it's supposed to be your last breath, it's supposed to be your last breath. But we do what we can, and we try our best.
Wow. So in your journey with Heartfulness, what would you say to your younger self today? The guy who has just read the Kabir book in the library, standing in the library, probably getting dirty looks from the librarian saying, why isn't he checking this out? Why is he just going to read the whole thing standing there?
Yeah.
What would you say to yourself?
I would say, hey, it's all going to work out fine. Don't stress about it. It's all going to work out great.
And those poems, did you ever revisit Kabir?
Oh, man, I used to keep multiple poems, like, before smartphones. I'd like have them folded and kept in my wallet, like, yeah, I love all those, like Rumi. Yeah, it was a big,
Do you have
all that
any
stuff.
favorites that you quote?
When my brain was sharp, I could quote a bunch of things. No, but what I was gonna try to do is like rework some of those poems like to like modern day, like there's the poem um, you don't have to go to the temple, you don't have to go here, you don't have to go there, I was thinking of trying to rework those into like a modern context.
So it could resonate with
Yeah.
with people, say, like
Yeah.
your kids' age.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a great project
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
that would be a great project to work on. And are you in any way, after all this engagement with life in a very intense way, because
Yeah.
the AR room is, I think, the most intense situation anybody can put themselves in.
Yeah.
And then there is, of course, the meditation that you do, which is
Yeah.
intense in its own way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you, can you hazard a foray into what is the meaning of life?
Wow.
It's a light question. I mean,
Oh, come on.
we've got the heavy stuff out of the way. I'm just going to ask you something like, what's the meaning of life, Radheshyam?
What's the meaning? Yeah. Look, the other day, there's so many intense experiences you can have. Okay. The other day, like every day here, I didn't like feel any mosquitoes. And then one night I got bit up by mosquitoes like all night long. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to get some artillery for this. I'm going to go. And I heard there's a department store. So, we have morning meditation. It was a good meditation. I really enjoyed it. And after meditation, I talked to some people, and then I'm walking towards a department store. Just that awning in between the canteen and the meditation hall. I'm walking there. I'm headed to the department store, and I start like bawling tears. Like not like crying. Like I start ugly crying. Yeah. In America, they call it fugly crying. It's like the F word,
Yeah,
ugly
sure.
crying.
Sure.
We're in an ashram, so I didn't say it.
Oh, there's a no curse zone.
So then I had to like leave and try to find like an empty chair, like in alone somewhere, and just finish my cry. And while that was happening, I just felt like this intense pressure coming down. Like I was like, I couldn't handle it. It was, I don't know if it's grace. I don't know if it's, transmission. I don't know, but it was intense. It was intense. It was definitely something divine, definitely something, not of this, not coming from me, not my imagination, but definitely something somewhere was like,
Working on you.
yeah,
Wow.
it was intense. So you tell me what that is. So, I mean, there is, there definitely is something divine, right? Some God, something. There's definitely something divine. So if you can go through life having that experience of the divine and, your material life, I mean, that's good enough for me. That's going to be my, you know,
Nice, nice. That's lovely. And in your life as a heartfulness trainer,
yeah.
um, what has been the most satisfying part of being a heartfulness trainer?
Look, giving sittings is really satisfying. It's really it. I feel like I get more out of giving a sitting than whoever's on the receiving end. So yeah, just being able to participate in that work. Feeling. Yeah, I don't know how it happens. I'll tell you. Like during the pandemic, I was not able to give a lot of sittings. Like during the pandemic, I just kind of went to survival mode. Like I need to be able to eat, sleep, and go through this thing. So I didn't. I was not even practicing regularly. It was and it definitely I felt those 2 years that I was not regular, I could feel the void of not being regular in the practice, not giving sittings. And then like this year or last year in 2022, we were gonna, and I was talking to some other preceptors. They're like, yeah, man, we haven't been giving sittings either. Like we got busy with this and that. And I was like, yeah, man, like I was like, hey, is the machine on? How's this work? I was nervous about like, getting back into my first sitting, and I was like, is this gonna work? Like, do you turn this on? but I'm joking, but like I don't know how it works. But I know it works.
Wow.
I don't know how it happens. I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's happening. And it's a beautiful gift to be able to experience that.
And much of the community, heartfulness community in America, is comprised of people of Indian origin.
Yeah.
Because it's, of course, much easier to get into something like that because you have a background in,
Right.
like you said, you grew up reading the Mahabharata and the Ramayana and all of that.
Right.
But do you see more and more Western people who have grown up in America, have a background in America, also adopting this? Is it becoming easier to...
I think definitely heartfulness has made it easier. There's so many like sanstas that have a lot of dogmas, right? So heartfulness has removed all those dogmas. You never hear, oh, don't eat meat, don't drink, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. You just hear, hey, try meditation, try cleaning, try this. These are things that you could try and see if it helps. And I remember Sharji gave this example. Hey, if I was going to give you directions somewhere, I wouldn't say, hey, don't turn left. Don't go another 20 yards. Don't turn right. Don't do this. I would say, hey, yeah, go 10 feet this way, make a right here, and then go left. That I would give you the directions. I wouldn't say don't. Right. So all these dogmatic principles of like, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, and you'll find God. I don't think people are gonna follow that. I think the world has moved way past those.
Mm-hmm. When you
those
come...
dictums.
Absolutely. I think the world has moved on from being dictated to
Yeah.
something very actively that works for you.
Right.
It's
Right.
So when you come home, say to Warangal, do you visit your hometown often?
Yeah, I was just there a few days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, I got to hang out with my aunts and uncles.
How does that go?
So they have this joke because I was the one that started Heartfulness in America, and I came here. And now they're all Abhyasis,
Wow.
and they have satsangs in their house and stuff. So it was, the first batch of this bandara. All my mom was here, my aunts and uncles were here, so it was great because it was like a bandara with like a little family gathering. Whereas before, when I used to come, it was just be me, and it was kind of me by myself. So it was really nice. It was really nice. And when I got to go back, I got to visit some, cousins and extended family. It was nice, but I only stayed one night there and came back.
And you find it easy to, the connection with the family? Is it easy to get back, or is it?
Yeah, no. So there are a few aunts that I keep very close touch with, through WhatsApp and stuff. And I look forward to seeing them, and so we still maintain a bond. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
And lastly, coming to your name, brother, Radheshyam, it's a difficult name.
Radheshyam, yeah.
To go through America with the name Radheshyam. So,
Yeah.
are you called Radheshyam in the ER room?
So when I first landed, they would when I started third grade in America. Okay, so Radheshyam became Radish and Ham. Okay, then it got shortened to Radish, and I think in high school, they started calling me Rad, and then now they call me Dr. Rad. So it's worked out. It's worked out okay.
Well, that almost sounds like a hip hop star.
Yeah.
It's Dr. Rad and his
Rad.
crew.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Lovely talking to you, Dr.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you for taking time out and sitting with us. And,
Thank you.
Wish you all the best.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. So that was my time with Brother Radheshyam, or Dr. Rad. I had a lot of fun. I hope you did too. To hear more such conversations, please subscribe to this channel. And also you can find us on Spotify on the Kanha Cast channel. That is KANHACAST. Thank you for listening. This is Hill Dog signing off. Namaste and woof woof.